The council chamber, though I suppose calling it a chamber violates protocol. So let's call it what it really was, a massive floating dome of transparent alloy hovering over the Krell homeworld, hummed with the usual pompous chatter. Delegates from 47 species, each more self-important than the last, lounged in their gravity wells or perched on their designated platforms, waiting for the session to begin. I was there, of course. Senior observer Vexthor of the Calithian Diplomatic Corps, taking notes nobody would ever read and trying not to fall asleep during another round of who can use the most syllables to say absolutely nothing. The humans had been members of the Galactic Cooperative for exactly 73 cycles now, not long by anyone's standards except maybe the Vryn, who measure time in heartbeats and die after what we'd consider a long nap. The Terran delegation sat in their assigned sector. 3 representatives looking remarkably calm considering what was about to happen. Their lead diplomat, Ambassador Kenji Okonkwo, was reviewing something on a data tablet. Beside him sat Dr. Yara Volkov, their military liaison, and to her left, Minister Rashid Ibn Kadir, their economic attaché. All 3 looked, I don't know, tired? Bored? It's hard to read human faces sometimes. They're so flexible, so expressive, yet somehow maddeningly opaque when they want to be. The session began with Chancellor Throom, a bloated Greshnid, who'd held the position for 200 cycles through sheer political inertia, calling order with his resonance staff. The deep thrumming sound echoed through the dome, and everyone settled into their positions. We convene the 4209th session of the Galactic Cooperative Council, Throom announced, his vocal sac inflating with each syllable. First order of business, the continued complications. Regarding Sector 779 and the territorial disputes therein, I should mention that Sector 7009 contained exactly 4 inhabited systems, 3 of which were human colonies. The 4th belonged to the Catharn Dominion, who'd been causing problems since before humans even knew there were stars beyond their own. The Catharn delegate, War Prince Zalaketh, rose from his platform with the kind of theatrical flourish only a species with 6 arms and 3 sets of lungs could achieve. The Catharn position remains unchanged, he declared, his mandibles clicking with each word. Those systems fall within our ancestral expansion zones, as outlined in the Pact of Endless Stars, ratified 9,000 cycles ago. The humans are newcomers. Children playing in a cosmos they do not understand. Okonkwo didn't even look up from his tablet. Volkov, however, did lean over and whisper something that made the corner of Okonkwo's mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but close. The Cathan claim, began Ambassador Threelix of the Vashnari Collective, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, while historically documented, does not supersede the current occupancy statutes outlined in Cooperative Charter Section 9. Paragraph. We are aware of the charter, Zalaketh interrupted, his chitinous plates rattling with indignation. What we question is why the Council continues to indulge these primitives in their transparent attempts to colonize beyond their capability to defend. Now Okonkwo looked up. His expression hadn't changed, still that same neutral professional mask, but something about the way he set down his tablet made the temperature in the dome feel like it had dropped a few degrees. Primitives, he said quietly. Not a question, just repeating the word. Zalaketh's mandibles spread in what we'd all learned was a Catharn smile. Yes, Ambassador. Let us speak plainly for once in this hall of diplomatic fiction. Your species stumbled into faster-than-light travel barely a lifetime ago. You possess no significant military fleet, no economic leverage, no historical precedent for expansion. You are infants grasping at toys meant for adults. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Forian representative, Elder Sineth, raised a tentacle. Perhaps we should maintain decorum. No, Okonkwo said, standing now. His voice remained calm, almost conversational. Let's hear the War Prince out. I'm genuinely curious where this is going. Zalaketh seemed pleased by this, which should have been everyone's first warning sign. Catharn are many things, but subtle isn't one of them. When they're pleased, something violent is usually about to happen. Your species, Zalketh continued, warming to his subject, has contributed nothing to this cooperative except demands for protection, resources, and now, laughably, territory. You bring no advanced technology we don't already possess. Your military consists of chemical propellant weapons and fusion reactors we abandoned millennia ago. Your diplomatic corps as well, we've all seen the evidence of that today. Okonkwo nodded slowly, like a professor listening to a student who's confidently wrong about everything. Fascinating perspective. Dr. Volkov, did you catch all that? Volkov had produced a small recording device. Every word, Ambassador. Excellent. Minister Ibn Qadir, your thoughts. The economic attaché looked up from his own tablet, his weathered face thoughtful. I'm simply wondering, War Prince, if you've actually reviewed the economic data from the past 73 cycles, or if you're operating purely on, how did you put it? Ah yes, historical precedent. Economic data is irrelevant when discussing territorial sovereignty, Zalketh shot back. Is it though? Ibn Qadir asked mildly. Because according to these figures, which I'm happy to share with the Council, human trade has increased cooperative GDP by 17% since our admission. Our technological exchange programs have solved 3 previously intractable problems in quantum navigation, 2 in biomed synthesis, and my personal favorite, we completely revolutionized your food production efficiency. Irrelevant? Zalaketh's voice rose to a screech that probably hurt the Rin delegate, who has hearing organs sensitive enough to detect solar wind. You speak of trade as if it grants territorial rights. Chancellor Throom raised his resonance staff. Please, let us maintain. No, Okonkwo said, and something in his voice made Throom's vocal sac deflate mid-inflation. I think we need to hear this. War Prince Zalaketh, you've made your position clear. Humans are primitive, contribute nothing, and have no right to our legally established colonies. Did I summarize that correctly? Adequately, Zalaketh replied, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. And this is the official position of the Catharn Dominion? It is the position of reality itself, Ambassador. The Forian delegate tried again. Surely we can find compromise. With respect, Elder Semeth, Okonkwo said. Still looking at Zalketh. I don't think the War Prince is interested in compromise. In fact, I don't think he's interested in diplomacy at all. I think he came here today to insult humanity publicly. On the record, in front of the entire Cooperative Council. Zalaketh's plates rattled, the Catharn equivalent of laughter. How very perceptive of you, human. Yes, that is precisely what I have done. And what will your primitive species do about it? File a complaint? Write a strongly worded protest? Perhaps threaten to withhold your food production efficiency improvements. Now Volkov was smiling too, and let me tell you, when humans smile like that, when their mouths curves up but their eyes stay cold, you should probably start running. Okonkwo reached into his jacket and pulled out a small crystalline data chip. Wait, no, can't say crystalline. Let me try again. He pulled out a small geometric data chip that caught the light from 17 different angles. This, he said, holding it up, contains the complete record of this session. Every insult, every dismissal, every claim that humanity contributes nothing and deserves nothing. War Prince Zalaketh's official position, delivered with such passion. Your point? Zalaketh asked. My point, War Prince, is that you've just made a catastrophic mistake. The dome went very quiet. Okonkwo walked to the central podium, inserted the chip, and pressed something on the interface. A holographic document appeared, floating in the center of the dome, large enough for everyone to read. This is the Terran Response Protocol, he said. Article 7, Section 3. In the event that the Terran Federation is publicly insulted, dismissed, or otherwise disrespected by a member state of the Galactic Cooperative, and said insult is deemed by a majority vote of the Terran Council to constitute a fundamental breakdown in diplomatic relations, the Federation reserves the right to withdraw from all treaties, agreements, and cooperative arrangements with said member state, effective immediately. Zalaketh's mandibles stopped clicking. This protocol, Okonkwo continued, was filed with the Council's Secretariat on the day we joined the cooperative. Every species here received a copy. Most of you probably never read it, which is fine. It's dense, it's boring, it's full of legalese that makes tax codes look exciting. But it's been there, waiting for 73 cycles. He looked directly at Zalketh now, and I swear the ambient temperature dropped another few degrees. Dr. Volkov, if you would. Volkov stood, produced another tablet, and began reading in a clear, measured voice. As of this session, the Terran Council has voted unanimously, 23-0, with no abstentions, that the Catharn Dominion's public insult to humanity constitutes a fundamental breakdown in diplomatic relations. Therefore, pursuant to Article 7, Section 3 of the Terran Response Protocol, the Terran Federation hereby withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and cooperative arrangements with the Catharn Dominion, effective immediately. You cannot, Zalketh started. We already have, Volkov continued, not even looking at him. Effective immediately means exactly that. As of this moment, all technology sharing agreements between Terra and the Catharn Dominion are void. All trade agreements are terminated. All military non-aggression pacts are dissolved. All scientific cooperative programs are ended. All cultural exchange programs are cancelled. All communication protocols are suspended. Minister Ibn Kadir stood now, adding his voice to the litany. Economically speaking, this means the Catharn Dominion has just lost access to quantum navigation improvements that reduced your travel times by 40%, biomed synthesis techniques that cut your hospital mortality rates in half, agricultural methods that increased your food production by 300%, 73 different patents currently licensed to Catharn manufacturers, and this is my favorite part. The gravitational stabilization technology that's currently keeping your homeworld's tectonic plates from tearing themselves apart. The silence that followed could have crushed neutronium. We can develop our own alternatives, Zalketh said, but his voice had lost its certainty, his mandibles clicking erratically. Okonkwo smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression I'd ever seen on a human face. Can you, though? Because according to our projections, and we've been running these numbers since before we joined the cooperative, because unlike you, we actually think ahead, the Catharn Dominion has approximately 6 months before critical infrastructure failures begin, 12 months before widespread agricultural collapse, 18 months before your homeworld's geological instability becomes, shall we say, problematic. He paused, letting that sink in. But please, War Prince, do develop your own alternatives. We'll wait. We're very patient when we need to be. Chancellor Thrum finally found his voice. Ambassador Okonkwo, surely this is an overreaction. Is it? Okonkwo turned to face the full council now, and I realized with a jolt that all of this, had been planned. The calm demeanor, the careful documentation, the precise legal citations, humans had been preparing for this exact scenario for decades. War Prince Zalketh called us primitives, Okonkwo said, his voice carrying across the dome. He said we contribute nothing. He claimed we have no right to exist in territories we've legally settled and developed. He did this publicly, officially, in front of the entire council, and none of you said a word. Elder Simeth's tentacles writhed in distress. Ambassador, we were attempting to maintain diplomatic— No, Okonkwo interrupted, and his voice had gone cold now, clinical. You were attempting to avoid conflict by letting an insult stand. There's a difference. A significant one. He gestured to the holographic document still floating above us. Humanity didn't write the Terran Response Protocol because we're aggressive or vindictive. We wrote it because we learned, very quickly upon joining the Galactic Cooperative, that many species here view newcomers as, what was the word? Yes. Children playing with toys meant for adults. Volkov picked up the thread seamlessly. We studied the historical records. Every species that joined the cooperative in the last 5,000 cycles faced similar treatment. The Vrin were dismissed for 200 cycles before anyone took them seriously. The Forians were mocked for their reliance on chemical propulsion. The Vashnari were denied trade agreements for 3 centuries because older species considered them culturally inferior, and every single one of those species, Ibn Qadir added, endured the insults, accepted the dismissals, waited patiently for acceptance that came only after they'd proven themselves according to standards set by species who had no intention of ever truly accepting them. Okonkwo nodded. We decided that wasn't going to be humanity's story. So we built contingencies, safeguards, leverage, and we waited to see who would be stupid enough to test us. Zalaketh's plates were rattling now, but not with laughter, with something closer to panic. The Council will never allow. The Council, Okonkwo said softly, dangerously, has no authority over bilateral treaties between member states. You know that. We know that. Everyone in this dome knows that, which is why we structured every single agreement, every technology transfer, every trade deal as a bilateral treaty rather than a multilateral cooperative arrangement. I felt my own respiratory system constrict as the implications hit me. They'd done it. The humans had actually done it. 73 cycles of carefully crafted agreements, each one technically independent, each one revocable without council oversight. Furthermore, Volkov continued, pulling up another document, pursuant to Article 12 of the Corrective Charter, the same charter the War Prince cited earlier, any member state engaged in active diplomatic conflict with another member state may request council mediation. We are formally requesting that mediation now. Chancellor Throom's vocal sac inflated and deflated rapidly, a sign of severe stress in Greshnid physiology. Mediation requires both parties to agree. We're aware of the requirements, Chancellor, Ibn Qadir said, which is why we're also invoking Article 14, Economic Sanctions Review. Given that the Catharn Dominion has now lost access to critical Terran technologies and resources, we are requesting a council review of whether continued Catharn membership meets the minimum stability requirements outlined in the chart. Oh, they were magnificent, terrifying, but magnificent. What they'd just done was essentially this. Withdraw all support from the Catharn, trigger a mediation process that would take months to resolve, and simultaneously question whether the Catharn could even remain in the cooperative without Terran assistance. It was legal warfare at a level I'd never seen before. Zalaketh's mandibles were clicking so fast they sounded like a failing engine. This is extortion. No, Okonkwo said calmly. This is consequences. You insulted humanity. You did so publicly, officially, in a manner designed to humiliate us in front of the entire cooperative. You assumed incorrectly that we would simply accept it because we're the newcomers, the primitives, the children. He walked closer to Zalaketh's platform, and I noticed that Volkov and Ibn Qadir had positioned themselves strategically, blocking potential exits. Not that Zalaketh was going anywhere, but the symbolism was clear. Here's what's going to happen now, Okonkwo said, his voice conversational again, almost friendly. The council is going to adjourn for emergency deliberations. During those deliberations, the Catharn Dominion is going to start experiencing some difficulties. Food shipments will be delayed because the agricultural processors we provided will start failing. Navigation systems will become unreliable because the quantum updates we've been sending every cycle will stop. Medical facilities will see increased mortality rates because the biomed synthesis we taught you requires regular calibration data that you'll no longer receive. Zalaketh tried to speak, but Okonkwo raised a hand. I'm not finished. Your homeworld's geological stabilization network will continue functioning for approximately 97 days before it requires a software update that only Terran engineers know how to implement. Without that update, you'll start seeing seismic events. Minor ones at first, magnitude 4, maybe 5 on the Terran scale. But they'll escalate. By day 120, you're looking at magnitude 7 events. By day 150, he trailed off, letting imagination fill in the rest. You're threatening genocide, Zalaketh whispered. No, Volkov said, her voice hard. We're withdrawing support. There's a difference, a significant one. Your species chose to become dependent on Terran technology. You signed the treaties. You accepted the transfers. You integrated our systems into your critical infrastructure, because they were better than what you had. 40% faster navigation, 50% reduced mortality, 300% increased food production. Remember, Ibn Qadir consulted his tablet. According to our economic models, the Catharn Dominion has sufficient resources and technical capability to develop indigenous alternatives to all Terran technologies within. Let's see. Approximately 37 cycles. Of course, that timeline assumes optimal resource allocation, perfect research efficiency, and no significant disruptions from geological instability or food shortages or navigational failures or medical crises. The full council was watching now, silent, horrified, fascinated. Okonkwo turned away from Zalaketh to address the broader assembly. We want to be absolutely clear about something. This is not a threat against the Galactic Cooperative. This is not humanity attempting to strong-arm the Council or establish dominance or any of the nonsense you're probably thinking right now. This is simply a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Elder Simoth asked, his tentacles coiled tight. Of why you don't insult humanity, Okonkwo said simply. Of why you don't dismiss us as primitives. Of why you don't assume that being the newcomers makes us weak or desperate or willing to accept disrespect for the sake of maintaining membership in your exclusive little club. He let that hang in the air for a moment before continuing. Every species in this council has access to the same bilateral treaty structure we used with the Catharn. Every species here has integrated Terran technology into their infrastructure to varying degrees. Some of you more than others. Ambassador Threlix? I notice the Voshnari Collective has been particularly enthusiastic about our quantum navigation improvements. And you, Chancellor Thrum, the Greshnid hegemony has adopted our agricultural methods across 78% of your farming colonies. Both delegates shifted uncomfortably. We're not threatening you, Volkov said, and somehow that made it sound more threatening. We're simply reminding you that relationships are built on mutual respect. The Catharn chose to insult us, publicly and officially. They're now experiencing the consequences of that choice. What happens next is entirely up to them. Zalaketh had gone very still, his mandibles frozen mid-click. Here are your options, War Prince, Okonkwo said, turning back to face him. Option 1. You apologize. Publicly, officially, on the record. You withdraw every insult you made today. You acknowledge that humanity is a full and equal member of the Galactic Cooperative with all the rights and privileges that entails. You do this within the next 72 hours, and if I refuse? Zalketh's voice was barely audible. Then we proceed to option 2. The council mediation process takes its course. 6 to 8 months. Typically, during that time you scramble to replace 73 cycles worth of Terran technology integration, while your homeworld slowly tears itself apart. Your economy collapses, your people suffer, your government falls, and at the end of those 6 to 8 months, when the mediation finally concludes, we offer to restore the treaties at significantly revised terms. Ibn Qadir smiled, and it was somehow worse than Okonkwo's earlier expression. Specifically, terms that include technological licensing fees retroactive to the date of treaty termination, resource access agreements favorable to Terran interests, and a permanent Catharn acknowledgement of Terran sovereignty over all disputed territories and sectors. You'd destroy an entire species over an insult? Chancellor Thrum asked, his vocal sac quivering. We'd let an entire species destroy itself over its own arrogance, Volkov corrected. There's a difference. A significant one. The War Prince chose to publicly question humanity's right to exist as equals in the cooperative. We're simply demonstrating why that was a catastrophically stupid decision. Okonkwo checked his chronometer. 72 hours, War Prince. The clock is already running. He gestured to Volkov and Ibn Qadir, and all three of them gathered their materials with calm, unhurried efficiency. They were leaving. Actually leaving. Right in the middle of a council session. Ambassador, Thrum called out, you cannot simply, can't we? Okonkwo paused at the exit. Check your charter, Chancellor. There's no requirement that delegates remain for entire sessions. And frankly, we've accomplished what we came here to do. As they walked toward the exit portal, I heard Ibn Qadir say to Volkov, just loud enough for his voice to carry across the dome. "Do you think he'll apologize?" 50-50 odds, Volkov replied. "Pride is a powerful force. So is geological instability," Okonkwo added. And all three of them laughed, actually laughed as they disappeared through the portal. The dome erupted into chaos the moment they were gone. Delegates shouting, demanding, questioning. Throom banging his resonant staff uselessly. Zalketh standing frozen on his platform, mandibles clicking in patterns that suggested complete cognitive overload. Me? I just sat there, stylus hovering over my datapad, trying to figure out how to summarize what I'd just witnessed. In the end, I wrote, "Humans are terrifying in ways we never anticipated. Not because they're aggressive or warlike or any of the things we expected, but because they think differently. They plan ahead. They build leverage quietly, systematically, over decades, and then, when you finally push them too far, they don't attack. They simply step aside and let you collapse under the weight of your own arrogance." 71 hours later, War Prince Zalketh issued a formal public apology. 72 hours later, all Terran treaties were restored. At the original terms, with an added clause requiring the Chthon Dominion to formally recognize Terran sovereignty over every disputed territory in Sector 7. And 3 cycles after that, when the Vryn delegation made an offhand comment about human inexperience during a trade negotiation, Ambassador Okonkwo simply smiled and said, "Would you like to rephrase that?" They did. Immediately. The humans never actually explained how they'd managed to integrate their technology so deeply into so many civilizations' critical infrastructure without anyone noticing the dependency being created. They didn't have to. The demonstration with the Catharn had made the point clearly enough. These days, council sessions are a lot more polite, a lot more careful. Nobody calls humanity primitives anymore. Nobody questions their territorial rights. Nobody assumes that being newcomers makes them weak, because we all learned the same lesson the Catharn learned. Though thankfully most of us learned it vicariously. Humanity doesn't need to be the strongest species in the galaxy, or the oldest, or the most technologically advanced. They just need to be the species you absolutely positively don't want to insult. And as I filed my final report on the incident, I included one additional observation that I felt was important for future reference. When humans smile and their eyes stay cold, start running. When they laugh while discussing geological instability, start praying. And when they calmly inform you that you've made a catastrophic mistake, it's already too late to fix it. The Terran Response Protocol is still on file with the Council's Secretariat. Every species has a copy. And these days, I guarantee you, every species has actually read it. Some lessons are only learned once. For the Catharn Dominion, 72 hours was barely enough time. For the rest of us, it was more than enough.